and welcome to the Citizen Report. I'm John DeShannon in North Carolina.
And I'm David Heller in Oklahoma.
And thank you for joining us tonight. As always, this newscast is real, in-depth, American. So glad everyone can join us. And David, so glad to have you on. Wasn't sure you were going to be on this weekend because obviously you got important things going on in your family. And I wanted to, as we start off this episode, David, I kind of want you to update the viewers on the situation with your dad. And also, I want people to remember your dad in prayer for his full recovery. And and with that said, I want to just kind of toss it to you so you can kind of talk to the viewers as you see fit about that.
Yes. So my dad has this rare form of cancer called PMF, or primary myelofibrosis. And for those that don't know what that is a bone. That's a type of cancer that is in your bone marrow. So basically, my dad's been going through treatment after treatment after treatment for at least seven and a half years now since his first diagnosis. And the good news that I got out of last week is that they cut down on his JAK2, and for now, they don't have to do any more blood transfusions, but I caution viewers to not count your chickens before they hatch, because he has another appointment coming up on the 5th, and we'll know a lot more whether or not there have been any changes, or if it's the same, or if it's improving, things like that. If it gets worse, then obviously they'll have to go back to doing, more blood transfusions again. But right now, at this point, I'm happy for the news that my dad got this week, but please continue to keep my family in prayer as we battle this, and I pray that my dad will finally be able to beat this cancer and make a full recovery.
Right. All right. And David, of course, as I mentioned, I want people to be praying for your dad because that is a serious thing, and we're grateful for any good news that comes out of this, and we'll certainly accept any good news that there is. But of course, we're careful, as you said, to not count chicks before they hatch. And David, I just want to say to viewers before we move on, there are other things to talk about, but I just wanted to say real quick, as you're able to, I hope that you're able to come on the podcast, but on those weeks that you need to, focus on that. I just want kind of preemptively tell viewers, if you don't see David on for a little while, or this week or that week, it's not, he'll still be a co-anchor on the Citizen Report. It's just right now it's a tough time to be in. My dad, I know with my dad, he's had a certain kind of cancer removed, and he's going to have to continue doing something having to do with his liver. So I can fully understand the stress that you're going through right now, David. So on any week that you're not on or can't be on, it's perfectly understandable, David. And I'll do my best to hold up, keep things going from this end of things. But I just urge viewers to please pray for your dad, and pray for David's dad, and that we believe, as it says, I believe in the book of Isaiah, that I'm not quoting it exactly, but something to the effect of that by Jesus' stripes we are healed. So we claim that by faith in the name of Jesus, that your dad is healed. Even if we don't see it manifest yet, we trust we believe and we receive that reality, right, David?
Right. And one way or another, my dad's going to get healed from this. Whether he gets healed here on this earth or he sees Jesus' face, one way or another, my dad's going to get healed from this cancer. One way or another. We just don't know how he's going to get healed, but one way or another, at some point, my dad is going to get healed from this cancer. We just don't know how and when he's going to get healed.
Right. And exactly. I don't think and I'll just add this too before we move on. I don't know if viewers know this or not. I don't know if we've ever mentioned this on the show or not, but your dad's a veteran, right?
Yes, he is. Served in the Vietnam War from the early to mid 70s, 72 to 76.
Right. And of course, I just want to take this opportunity, just on the podcast that is, to say on the record, I just want to thank him for his service because, he's being a veteran is a highly honorable thing, and serving to protect this one nation under God, this Christian nation, and protecting our freedoms and liberties for the next generation. So, so David, of course, we'll keep viewers up to date, updated as need be as time goes on. Right now, David, we've got a lot of news breaking. I mean, it's just unbelievable. In the last couple of days, last 24 hours, there's been a lot of, unfortunately, deaths that have occurred or been announced, I should say. And I'll just quickly say in quick succession the big ones. We have the death of Regis Philbin. We have the death of and I apologize if I mispronounce her name, but Olivia de Havilland, maybe. She played on Gone with the Wind years and years ago. I mean, she was one of the best actresses to ever been on screen, the big screen. We have just today. We have also his name slips on my Ed Anson. And that's kind of one of the ones we were going to focus on in particular. He owned Sunbeam Broadcasting. It's Sunbeam something, but headquartered in North Bay Village, Florida. That's Miami area, with WSBN Channel 7 down there, and then up north at WHDH Channel 7. Those two stations, and also the duopoly. It's actually duopoly up in Boston. I forget the call sign, but it's Channel 56.
WLBI.
Yeah, WLBI.
WLBI, Channel 56.
Right. And David, it slips on mine. I know there was another death. I forget which one it was.
It was John Kelly, the longtime owner of Kelly Broadcasting, which used to be in this industry, owned KCRA 3 in Sacramento, as well as KCPQ, Channel 13 up in Seattle. He passed away today as well.
Right. Okay. Obviously, it's unfortunate, but it's the way it is in this fallen world. People are gonna, all of us on a long enough timeline are going to pass if Jesus doesn't return before that, and that's just the way it is. And I don't know, David, how much you wanted to get into that, but I thought we needed to include that. Would be fair if we included that.
Right, and there were a couple tweets that people over at Channel 7 in, I believe, Miami, tweeted that I want viewers to see. So I'm going to share my screen.
Okay.
And from everything that, that the viewers can see that have tweeted, about, Ed Anson, he was a legend in this industry. And Jonathan and I were talking about this off the air. When you think of Ed Anson, he's pretty much the Donald Trump of this television industry. He is a no-nonsense type of a person in this industry. And he's somebody that a lot of journalists who are, maybe thinking about going into this industry or are starting out in their industry, or maybe, around their mid period in their careers. But the point being is, he's the guy that you wanted to work for, especially if you were in Miami or in Boston. He's a no-nonsense guy, and he's somebody that NBC executives, for example, learned the hard way, not just in Miami, but especially up in Boston as well. And, it really goes to show you the type of a person that Ed Anson is to this industry.
Right. I mean, my dad used to work for CBP down at Miami Seaport, and I remember there was there were summers that I went down to Miami Beach so I could be with my mom, and I could be with Dad when I wasn't going to school during the summer break. And I remember watching Channel 7, and they were really there are a few stations that really come close to matching the quality of the breaking news, weather coverage. If you turned on Channel 7 in Miami, I can speak for this personally as to Channel 7 in Miami, WSBN. If there was breaking news, if there was weather, it doesn't matter. It's just as to the news coverage, there was really nobody else in Miami that could do it quite the way Channel 7 could do it. If there was something happening, they were endeavoring to have a reporter there, and so many other stations kind of cut corners and trying to, do just what they have to do. Well, Channel 7 went above and beyond. They were trying to truly live up to their logo, or I should say slogan, which was the news station. And so that station really has really done well having Ed Anson as their owner through Sunbeam. So this is a very seismic passing, to say the least, for the broadcast industry.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, and the bigger question is going to be, whether or not the children has any interest in this industry, and we don't know for sure whether or not they have interest in this industry, and if they don't, what's going to happen to both the Channel 7s in Miami and Boston, because obviously if those children don't have any interest in the industry, at some point they're going to probably help their Miami and Boston operations. Of course, we don't know for sure what's going to happen in a year or two or even 3 years from now, but obviously this is one of those developments that we're going to have to follow very closely going forward.
Oh, no, without question. And I think it's perfectly accurate to say, I think it's perfectly in my right to say that at this point, broadcasting is a huge seismic time. Like, everything is just changing right now. And so when you see something like this happen, one only has to wonder how much longer Sunbeam is going to remain an independent company. But that's for another day, because we really don't know right now what's going to happen. If any, and who knows, maybe it just stays the way it is under new management, whether it's his children or somebody. It remains to be seen what will happen with that. But David, I did want to mention this too. By the way, was there anything else you wanted to mention on the subject of passing? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now, I wanted to mention this too, and I sent you the link to that article. Uh, People's resistance to wearing a face mask is really starting to pay off because the thing is that Walmart instituted, as most people watching probably know by now, on the 20th of July, just a few days ago, Walmart started, quote unquote, requiring customers to wear face coverings. Now, we knew at the time that they were going to have these talking points handed out to what they call health ambassadors at the front door. And management at each store would have this promulgated among them as well. But basically, they had various exemptions. Like if you refused by a health reason, medical reason, probably other reasons, but the medical or health one is the one that comes to mind for in most circumstances. They said the customer can walk right into the store. The person is supposed to just thank them for shopping, and the person just goes right on in. If the person refuses to wear the mask and doesn't cite a reason, they, but per their talking points, can escalate to the point where someone working at the store approaches them and reminds them again beyond that door that they're supposed to wear a face mask, and they can offer them to wear one for free instead of having to pay for one. If that person still refuses to wear a face mask, then the person can still shop at the store. Now, David, that article that I sent you basically insinuates that now these stores are starting to walk back their requirements, and not just Walmart. They're also, now when I say walk back, I don't mean outright walking it back to the point that they're removing the requirement, but basically they're softening up their stance on it. So really, David, there's never really been a hard requirement, particularly at Walmart. So this is from the Daily Mail website. As viewers can see, it literally says face mask U-turn. Walmart, Home Depot, Walgreens, and CVS are among stores saying they will serve customers who don't wear masks despite announcing face coverings were mandatory. Now, I think this is great. I think this shows that those who, and we're not saying here on the Citizen Report, if you just want to wear a mask as a voluntary act that you're not being coerced to, we're not saying that's necessarily bad. If you truly want to wear one, that's your decision. But the rest of us should not be forced to wear one, particularly just to shop at a store.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, and not just to shop, but to just do anything, go to work, anything like that. We shouldn't be forced to wear a face mask as a way of keeping the economy open. We shouldn't have to do that. And I really think it's getting to the point where, and this should have happened a long time ago, there needs to be a compromise made in Washington at some point that say, okay, we can do this and this, but we won't give you this and this. You know what I mean? There needs to be a compromise at some point in Washington. We've gone far too long in our response to this pandemic and not done a compromise of some type. And this is why I think we as a country have failed in terms of our coronavirus response, because you have one side that wants to say, oh, no normal until vaccine, and then you have the other side, oh, I don't want to wear a face mask because that infringes on my freedoms. So there's got to be a balancing act, and right now we are not seeing it in Washington at all, period. And that's got to change.
The issue is that with masks is that it's not just the fact that it's a piece of cloth on your face. It's not just that, although there's enough to having an issue with that alone. It's the mentality that these masks will build up to something else, and it will initially build up to requiring people to take a vaccine just to be in society. And that's where I have this big issue, is because when you have to do something, again, this has nothing to do with, now they try to use the straw man argument of, well, you know, no shoes, no shirt, no service. Well, obviously that's kind of a duh, because that's basic decency. And particularly with the shirt, that's basic decency. But when you're talking about a mask, you're talking about something that is starting to interfere with your breathing on some level. And that's not the same thing. So those that say that, well, we'll just say no shirt, you know, we've always said no shoes, no shirt, no service. Well, yeah, that's fine. But because, again, that's basic decency. But masks are not the same thing, because, again, you're covering your ability to breathe. And also, somebody looking at you might not be able to identify you as easily when you have that face mask on. If for example, you need to be identified, if you need to show your ID, you know, got your driver's license, your passport, whatever it is that you're using for whatever it is you're doing, that person, without you having to wear that, when you're wearing that mask, they're not going to be able to easily identify you. Now, maybe they can if they know you, at least remotely speaking, but if you're just a pure stranger to them, they might not be able to identify you. So that's an issue too. But what I would also say is that I believe that what these masks are really about is that it's the deep state trying to push fear, and they're trying to say, oh, look, because it's a psychological effect. If they say you have to wear a face mask, then people might say, well, maybe it's not safe to go vote this fall. And by saying that you don't have to wear a face mask, if everyone just all of a sudden went back to having confidence in living again, people would be just fine going to vote, I should say, this fall, this November. And that's what the deep state doesn't want, because they can more easily manipulate the ballots coming in by mail. So, and of course we know, and I don't have the article, I only thought of it just now, but I believe that I want to say it was in the state of Florida, and I'm not sure if I'm correct in saying that. I want to stress that from the outset. But I believe, anyway, that there was 18,000 estimated voter by mail ballots that went uncounted in the recent election in Florida, if I'm not mistaken. Now, I'm not sure if it was Florida, but it was somewhere. And that just points out they want to push masks. And keep in mind, in the beginning, they said that it didn't do anything to wear a face mask. Now they say we not only should, but you will wear a mask. And that's why I think that there's an issue there, because people, again, it's a psychological thing. If people are told to wear a face mask, then they think that they can't resume normal life. If they can go without a mask, then they're more likely to feel, oh, okay, I can go back to my normal life now. And I think that there's a lot going on there as well, David. I don't know if you agree with that or want to counter anything.
I do agree with that, but I just think that at some point there just needs to be a compromise. Period. You know, the fact that both sides are not willing to compromise, and that goes for both Democrats and Republicans. Both sides are not willing to compromise at all. And at some point, we need to compromise on this issue, period. Because right now, and it's not just the face mask, but our response to COVID-19 in general have really shown that we as a country have failed. Because we have not handled our response to this pandemic very well. Because you have all these governors and mayors that, you know, want to go on this extreme side of shutting everything down, and then you have another side that is not being strong enough in terms of their response. So there needs to be middle ground in terms of our response to this pandemic. And right now, Jonathan, we're not seeing that at all. And we as a country have got to start doing a better job at finding middle ground.
Now, Hmm. Now, if when you say compromise, I'm just kind of curious what your thinking is in terms of what would be a good compromise.
A good compromise to me would be, yes, do take precautions and everything like that, and yes, on the mask, but only if you want to wear a mask. Don't force it upon you or I. If if say I want to wear a mask, fine. That's fine with me. It's my right to wear a mask. But it doesn't give me a right to force it upon you to wear a
Right.
mask, if you know what I mean. So I think that would be a good compromise on a mask would be, okay, yes, it would be optional on wearing a mask, but it should not be a requirement for both of us to wear a mask just to do anything. That's not right.
I think that's good. I mean, I think that that would protect the liberties of anyone that sees it in their conscience to not wear one. I'll tell you this. Now, I've been advocating from the very beginning, dude. People should not be wearing masks. Should not be forced to wear masks. I will say that back on, I'm trying to remember the day. It was last week. I remember it was last week, and I believe it. I want to say it was Friday, but I forget exactly. But whenever it was, I went to a store down in Rock Hill, South Carolina. Now, the state of South Carolina doesn't have face mask requirements. The city of Rock Hill, however, does. Now, I had an order to pick up. In hindsight, I could have done this differently, and I should have done this differently. I did put on a mask for maybe 5 minutes. Maybe 5 minutes. In fact, just to show viewers. Now, I don't know if it was this one or a different one, but this was the kind of mask that I had, whether if it was this one or the other one, which was black that I had. But I had that on for only a few moments. Now, I was stressed that day, so maybe some of this could be attributed to my stress instead. But I do remember for at least a few minutes after taking the mask off, and I only had this on for a few moments. I didn't have it on for that long because I was just trying to pick up something and get back out. I noticed that my oxygen level, that my lungs, for example, that sensation that you have that you aren't quite getting enough air was there. So I know for a fact that I can personally say, now again, some of that might be attributable instead to the stress that I was having that day. I don't remember. I can't really say scientifically for sure one way or the other, but anecdotally speaking, I can say that the mask made me feel like I was not getting enough air. So I believe that argument is very much true, that that oxygen levels do go down when you have one of these things on. So I think that it's not just a pure preference. I think of those that have a medical reason to not wear one, that they should be given that choice. If you don't want to wear a mask, you should not be forced to wear one. And I will say, just on the record, as much as I can get away with it, I am not wearing a mask. I have not done it one time to go into a store where I had the choice of doing it without, of course you can walk in and say, look, I have a medical exemption. I chose not to go down that path and just put one on and just deal with that for that 5 minutes or whatever. But I will say that wearing a mask when you're being forced to wear a mask, you are literally being forced to give up your rights. And now, of course, that being, where your rights are being taken away, that's only true if you let that happen. But I'll just say that these masks, see, here's the thing. You have to put on these huge things if you go into go mining, if you go, let's say, spray painting or painting or removing asbestos. But for the world's supposedly deadliest virus, that instead of putting one of those elaborate double filtration things on, you're instead putting one of these on. Now, I don't know about you, but that to me is kind of it's kind of a farce to think that these things really do much of anything. Because look, you can have one of these things on, and yet your eyes are still absorbing stuff, your skin absorbs stuff, and these things don't even filter out, because the virus particles are actually smaller than the they can get through the the fabric theoretically, because the diameter, if you will, is smaller. So David, I know I kind of went on a bit there, but I'm trying to explain the logic there a little bit. But I think, bottom line, that people should be given the right. Well, they shouldn't be given the right. They have the right. The government just needs to recognize the right to choose. And I think, David, the state of South Dakota has done the best. She says, I trust my citizens to make the right choice. And the South Dakota governor was the one that said that. And I think she's really the only governor that has 100% gotten it right on this. She is true to the Constitution. She took an oath that she's remaining true to, and letting the people, we the people, have the right to choose. So these other governors, David, these other mayors, they are completely overstepping their boundaries. And I will tell you this, we know for a fact they're going to push vaccines, because we see Bill Gates that says we need to have the aggressive vaccinations. I forget the exact quote, but I mean, this guy's an absolute lunatic. And yet, I know I'm going to go off on a tangent here, but let me just say, about what happened with Sinclair Broadcast Group the other day. They decided to, they were going to televise an interview with the woman from the Plandemic movie. And of course, the mainstream media tries to say that she's discredited. Now, that's kind of rich because, excuse me, it's kind of rich because, for one thing, if she's discredited, why not just say why she's discredited? Instead, they try to call her names by saying she's discredited, instead of just showing why she's discredited. Instead, they just say, "Oh, you shouldn't listen to her. She's discredited." The very same people that want to attack a doctor like that are the same people that give Bill Gates a pass on CBS. He was being interviewed by Norah O'Donnell from CBS Evening News, and I find it kind of interesting that there seems to be a double standard there. I'm all for the same standard. But why are they giving him a pass and yet choose to attack this person because she has a different scientific opinion? And by the way, before I toss it to you, David, to get your thoughts on this, these governors and other people say the science is overwhelming, that wearing a face mask stops the virus. Well, if that science is so overwhelming, why don't you just show us what that science is? Instead, they just want us to take them at face value that the science is overwhelming. And by the way, science itself, and maybe I need to bring my dad on at some point, because he's pretty, he can elaborate on this as well. But let me just say that when you're dealing with science can reach different conclusions based on different people applying it, and that's what we see here. We see one doctor reaching a different conclusion, and they're attacking her for it. Whereas Bill Gates, he's not even a scientist. He's a quote-unquote philanthropist, but I would say that that's a front, and that's a whole other topic. But he's not even a scientist, and yet they're lending more credibility to him while bashing this woman, calling her discredited and calling her a conspiracy, whatever have you. And they're attacking Sinclair Broadcast Group just for wanting to televise it. And I just think, why not just let these people have their say? And if it's so damning against them, then they can counter that with the other side that would be more that would win the argument, right? And instead, they just want you to listen to Bill Gates say you must take the vaccine. We can't go back to normal. And he's not even a scientist. And yet we're not even supposed to hear out what this woman has to say. And Facebook is tried to keep this movie that came out a while ago called Plandemic. I shared it on my personal Facebook, by the way, where she was interviewed. And I thought she was pretty compelling, to be quite frank about it. I'm not saying that I agreed with 100% of her statements, but I thought that in general she was making some good arguments. I want to hear what everyone has to say. I don't want to have people being censored. And David, on that note, I'll toss it to you because I'm kind of curious to see what you have to think about this.
Oh yeah, and the thing is, I really think the media is showing its true colors. I really do, and I don't think the media is helping the situation at all. I think, and still to this day with this virus, they're still making this problem worse than what it needs to be. They're trying to say, oh, we can't go back to normal until vaccine. Sorry, but that's a load of baloney. I think that, again, we just need to find a way to make a compromise. And a good compromise would be, if you want to wear a mask, if you want to follow the guidelines that it says on a CDC site, that's your right to do so. But don't force it upon everybody to follow the same rules.
Right.
It's just garbage, Jonathan. It's just garbage that both sides are just not willing to compromise, and we need to compromise. Period.
Well, we need to find a way to move forward and not make it out to be where those who don't want to wear a face mask are not allowed to function in society. I put whether it was this one or another one, I put on a mask for just a few moments. I did that one time last week, and I may have to do it at least one more time still. But I'll tell you this, I will not put on a mask whenever I absolutely do not have to wear one. And even in those times, I could have gone in there and try to beg them to let me in, and just say, look, I need to claim an exemption here. I just chose not to fight that. I did wear one at one time, but I would not wear one if I can get away with it. So, reasonably so, I mean. But just to say about rights, those that say these businesses are privately owned, and that's true. They're private businesses, but at the same time, you've got Walmart. They take government money. They either take government money or they get tax benefits. Now, I don't know about you, that to me doesn't make it a purely private organization anymore. And they are essential. Well, okay. I was starting to use their language, and that's not good. All good, wholesome businesses are essential. And, but what I mean is that in terms of like getting food and getting, water, basic toiletries, for example, hygiene products. Walmart is one of those kinds of stores, and yet they're trying to strong arm people into wearing a face mask. And not just that. Think about the people who are having to work at these places, and they're having to wear a mask. And I feel sorry for them, because at the moment, I don't have to work at one of these places. But I'll tell you this, I would have a huge dilemma if I was having to be told that I had to wear a face mask for 8 hours a day or whatever. And I just feel my heart goes out to them, because they're trying to make a living, and yet they're being told they're kind of having their paycheck dangled over their head over a mask. David, I just wish there was a way that we could take back this narrative. And I believe we're winning. I believe that we the people are winning the argument. How do I know that? because these businesses are walking back their statements. We have Dollar Tree and Family Dollar going from saying that you must wear one to where now we just ask you to wear one. You know, they request you to wear one. So, David, I think personally we're going in the right direction. It's taking a while, but I do believe we are on the winning side now. We've been on the winning side, the side of good from the very beginning, but we're starting to see that manifest because more and more people are saying, you know something, I'm not being strong-armed anymore. So I think that we are winning this, David, and we'll have to keep watching and see how this develops, but I think that we're moving in the right direction now. One more thing I would like to say, at least on this episode, is that we know that there's an unseen enemy trying to destroy America, and what I mean by that is the deep state. The deep state wants us divided, and we must remember that they're trying to create this projection. They want to say that we're divided, but if we realize that we as the American people, we the people, we're all Americans. If we can come to that realization, I think that that's where the deep state starts to lose their power. If we realize that we are one nation under God and that we're not divided on this stupid stuff like Black Lives Matter and whatever have you. Because remember, Black Lives Matter is a front. It is a Democrat/deep state organization. If you look up how you go donate to Black Lives Matter, it's literally the money's taken by a Democrat organization. So, but I just wanted to say that, Q has told us that we should put out flags. So I would encourage everyone, because here's the thing: the average person is like, okay, how do I stand up to this? I can't really do a whole lot. An average person. Well, one thing you can do to show these mainstream media people, to show the deep state that we're all patriotic, that we're all one, we the people, is put out a flag. Now it's asked that you put it out in your front yard, but I don't have one out in my front yard right now. So one way you might do it is get something to wear that's patriotic. For me, I just bought a pair of sunglasses. I'll be getting it this week that has the American flag on it. So, whatever way you can show that you're patriotic, that you stand for this country, let's do that. Let's do that. Let's show these people that we are aware, we're awake, and we're standing up for this country. We are the silent majority, but silent no more. So, David, I just wanted to throw that in there because I believe it was important to mention. I'll cover that on the next episode more at length, and the other stuff with that. But David, any final thoughts on anything we mentioned?
Not at all. I think that was a good episode, and looking forward to do it again next time.
All right, David. And of course, we've asked some people, ask viewers to pray for your dad, and I trust that they will. And I hopefully you can be on as much as you can, but any week that you need to be off, I understand. It's just one of those times right now where you just kind of have to take it 1 week at a time or 1 day at a time. So, so on that note, just a quick reminder that both of us are on all the major social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. I personally am also on Parler. I'm not doing much with that right now, but in case if anything ever happens to me on Twitter or Facebook, I have a way to have something to fall back on. And you can find me there at Real Jonathan Shannon. So on that note, thank you for tuning into the Citizen Report. And don't forget our website. I do need to update it. I'll be working on that pretty soon. thecitizenreport.weebly.com. And for David and myself, have a great evening and a great week ahead. And we'll see you right back here again next time. Have a great night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.